Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Monday. It's November 12th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and we had a really nice downtrend that lasted till almost 11 o'clock, between 10:30 and 11, and then we just went sideways. The thing is here, you figure this thing is probably going to bounce at any time, but it never really does today. We just couldn't get back above this 27, I'd say the 2750 area in here. 2747 to 2750 with just really strong resistance. Every time prices rallied to that level, the sell-off started again, and we had another little sell-off here late in the afternoon that really went into the 2 o'clock hour in the close. So they're just most all your really good trades were early on, and then really it was kind of hard to determine this was a range until we bounced down here a couple of times. It was obvious there was some resistance here at this level, but you would think we may go lower at that point. But then we bounced here a couple more times, and then it looked pretty obvious that this is kind of a range like here, and you can trade this both ways. Although you'll see most of the trades are still the downside because the overall bias is down, and we traded down into this range as well. Generally, unless prices are going to reverse, if you trade down to a range and it just continues on like this, the likelihood of it reversing are not very good. If it breaks out, it's probably going to break out in the direction that it trended down into the range. So we trended down into this. So you would expect maybe we'd probably trend out of it to the downside rather than to the upside. But that can go either way. But that's generally, anytime you see prices trend into a range, a lot of times, unless it's a correction or something, a small correction, most of the time it's going to continue back on in the same direction with that range. Just kind of it's not 100%. Nothing in trading is ever 100%, but that's generally the way I'll look for that to happen. That's the general likelihood is that it's probably going to continue out the same direction it trended in. So keep that in mind. This was a really tight two-tiered channel working down here. We had a little break and then another little even tighter one, and it played out pretty well. Very similar to this one. It's almost like a little repeat pattern. But let's back out. We'll talk about the trades and we'll get through today and wrap it up. You had to be patient this morning because when I came in, we were already trending down here, and I don't think you want to be taking any longs in here, so you had to kind of wait. And notice how if you drew this trend line off this low side and drug it up to the top, it gave you this setup almost perfectly here. And even if you couldn't find that, notice you're working up, you get a close outside, a move to a new high, and then it turned down. And if you didn't catch this first entry, it's almost a little congestion area with a little failed breakout. So if you didn't catch this one, you really didn't get another chance to get in it until way down here. You might have looked at this as a notice how we tried to go higher once, twice, and then there's a lows, but it's just so congestive sideways. So you might have considered that one there. I didn't mark it because I think it's relatively risky. I'll go ahead and make it green. We'll talk about it when we get there, but I'm going to back out a little more. But notice this first trade, and at that point I would have at least looked for, that's pretty much your first leg, and this is your correction in the middle, and I'd look for and you can see that put us down here. We didn't quite get there. We just couldn't get through there. We continued on as the day went on. That would have been my first target when we started down from right in this level here. So, but notice we're working up. We get the close outside, move to a new high. And if you could find this trend line off the lows here and drag it to the high, it sets this up perfectly. That's not a perfectly bearish bar, but it's bearish enough considering that the EMA is here, the trend line is kind of sideways, and it's a little failed break higher. There's a couple of different reasons like that. There is a lower high right here. We kind of broke higher and turned and went back down, but it's right into that bottom. I'm probably not going to take that one. You do have a short-term trend line here, so that's another one you might consider. Again, I'm not crazy about it, but if you wanted to be a little aggressive, you'd probably take that one. especially if you'd already missed this one, because you you want to make sure that if we're starting that next leg down, you want to make sure you get in it, and you don't want to be waiting until here for your first opportunity, because you're just really bouncing down the EMA here. And so we finally come back over, but notice that new low, and you get a first entry, then a second entry, and this is almost a perfect repeat pattern of this right here. It looks just like it almost, except this gives you a second entry to boot right here. And that's another nice little entry. And you actually get a little repeat right here, very similar to that one. So that's another one that you might consider, but you're going short at the very low of the day to enter that trade. But the fact that it's a repeat pattern and we just reset off the key entry point trend line, you might take it. I'll mark it green. Would have been a nice little trade, but you don't really know that ahead of time. And then, of course, we bounce again. First entry, second entry. Nice bearish bar. I like that one on the second entry. Plus, you've got a break, new high. Generally, you want to wait on a lower high. You got one here, but it's just a real neutral doji type bar. It would have worked if you took it, but I don't think you want to take that one. Then we bounced again, and you just got a lot of congestion here. You actually pushed through the EMA and pulled back and got a lower high here, so you might consider that one. But if this trend line's correct on the low side, across those lows right there, you're going short right into it, so I'd wait. And you actually push on through and pull back and get a failed second entry long right there, and a reversal pattern and a big bearish bar, reversal type bar. That's a better place to enter. And of course, notice how it bounces right there. It finally pushes through and pulls back. This made a new high, so first entry, second entry, right at the key entry point, another big bearish bar. It's another good place to enter. And off it goes. You get another little turn down there, but look how we're going sideways. There's a doji in there. And now you're just bouncing off this low end, so I don't think you want to take any of these. And finally, you overshoot, pull back. That means you'll probably get a break, so that's why you want to kind of be careful right there. I think you might have still had enough movement there to get out of that one. But all the same, I wouldn't take that. I'd wait on that second entry, especially since there's an overshoot. And notice how we get a second entry here. And that's not the best signal bar either. Really, you could combine those two, three almost, and you get kind of a bearish bar. But that's the first real close outside that. So we're probably, and it is a second entry. It is off the EMA. So we're probably going to at least retest the lows. So that's why I like that one. And if you didn't take that one, you don't really get another opportunity. Then we move down, you come back, and you get another first entry, and you get a lower high. And this actually went higher and turns down here, goes out the other side. Another nice trade, but you got a break and at least a couple legs down, and now we bounce. There's actually a little short-term trend up here. This looks a lot like a reversal pattern. If you'd have taken the failed second entry short, you probably would have got burned, and then it looks like there's another one here. And that's a big bearish bar, but notice how there's no close outside that till here. So you're probably going to try to push for a new high, and you actually kind of get a little triple top right there and a lower high. I marked that one green, but I'm just not crazy about it, to be honest with you. I think you're better off to skip that trade. But you do get a break here, and you tried to go higher, but you don't have a high in place, although you do have a double test of that, and that's a really neutral bar. So I just think you're better off to skip that. And then, of course, now it shoots up and tries to make that lower high. But I'd draw another trend line here. And you get a lower high here. But, again, you've been making higher highs. I want to make sure we're going lower first. And you actually do get a failed second entry long here. But look at all that support right across there. You don't want to go long into that. I mean, short into that. Just not worth it. And you finally push down and pull back and make a lower high on a big bearish bar there now. And this is basically a double top. So first entry, second entry, you could treat that like a failed second entry short or long. It's a breakout pullback short. The main thing, you got that big bearish bar. you got this trend line working now. That's the first convincing close outside. It looks like we closed outside here, but that's not real convincing. So I like that one. There's a lower high here. Bar's too bullish. And we run down and we bounce down here. Then we bounce again. This one I marked green. This is a very risky trade here, but it's obvious now we're kind of going sideways. If you're just looking at this is like a range day. And a lot of times you'll catch a major low of the day here. So look, we're a good bit away from the EMA. It's the first time we've traded down there. There's a good chance we're at least pulling back to the EMA. And this thing just kind of takes off. You pull back first entry, pull back second entry. It's really looking like a range now. Generally, the middle of the range is where you got to be careful, but we're probably going to shoot up to the upper side here. That's the first break of that, and that's a really strong move. And it could be that that's swing number 2 as well, so you might risk that one. We move up, and now you got the same thing on. Let me back out. Now we got the same thing, a failure here, and look how far away we are from the EMA. We've got our close outside, a couple of legs up. Again, this bar doesn't look as pretty as this one does. This is a really nice bullish reversal type bar here, where this one still got a little stem. But being that far away, and even being far enough away from the breakout area, you might risk that one. You get a lower high here. I wasn't still watching prices print at this point, so I don't know if this went higher first and then broke out, or went lower first. It could have gone higher, so you might have gotten tricked entering right there, and if you did, you probably got stopped out before it went down. But I'm not sure how that one printed, honestly. So you'll just, if you were trading in, you'll know. But this is both of these are really bearish bars. And when the second one closed way down here, I'd probably go ahead and take it if I didn't take that first one and get stopped out. And of course it bounces, runs back up, and you just really don't get a chance to enter this one. And here's your lower high way over here, and it's after 2 o'clock. You could consider entering either one of those because we're probably headed back down to the low side. It's still kind of early. It's just right in the 2 o'clock hour, but you can see that sure trend working down through there, and so it's still a continuation. Then another failure there. You're starting to get away from the EMA though, but this is probably where you're heading, and you still got a lot of room there. So you might consider that one, and maybe even that one. So, and that got it for today. It got kind of, it started out slow, but all you had to do is catch a couple of these, and several of these would have had runners. And there were several in the afternoon. Of course, most of them were short because the overall bias for the day was short. So you had to be real careful buying, especially once you got into the middle to the upper side of this channel. So always keep that in mind. Somebody sent me a question asking about a trade that they took long in here somewhere and they got burned. And that's, stay with the bias and you're a lot better off. I mean, you could have, every time prices came back up to this area, if you'd have sold, you'd have made money. So I'd rather see you risk one of these than risk buying along this area once we're getting back up to this resistance here. And people always ask me, how do you know if there's resistance? Well, look at that. Look how many times we turned back up here. There's obvious support there. Look how many times we turned down in this area. There's obvious resistance there. That's how you know. You draw your line and you see it. You don't know it when it's way over here because you don't have a lot of evidence that it's bouncing or turning down at those levels. And it does once, twice. So, hey, we've turned down 3 times there. That's even a double test, and you're still a little way away from the EMA. So that's another one, but I think you're better off to wait because we could be reversing. Then it comes back and it turns down there again, comes back again, and look how many times we bounced along down through here. It becomes obvious that that's how you know from experience and seeing it doing it and then drawing your lines and finding that support resistance. But a really good trading day early on, and like I said, we were real close to that measured move down as well, so that would have given you a nice target. But yeah, there's not much else we can say about today, just a strong downward bias. We were at 2800 was it Friday we were at 28, Thursday or Friday sometime we were up there around 2,800. I guess that was Thursday and early Friday. And then now we're already back down almost at 2,700. That's a nice move today. Market still continues to be relatively volatile. So just keep that in mind. And, you know, when you've got a big downtrend like this and you start to get little corrections, make sure you let the corrections play out before you try to get short, and make sure you know that you're not trying to buy too far up into the move. You know, let me show you a good example. Like by the time we got back up here, you don't need to be trying to buy up here. I mean, wait till we're got something going on and you know you've got a steady trend. But notice how we got a little trend and it breaks, and then we got another little trend and it breaks. That's not what you're really expecting to see. You want to see something rocket out of here and take off before you start really. You want to see a consistent trend that's proven before you start buying again. And you don't ever really see that here. You see some little short-term trends, and they always followed by another big sell-off. And that's a good sign that, hey, the bias is still intact, which the bias was down. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow, but I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.